It was late October 2023, the first autumn since I left my job for good. My name is Evelyn Marlowe, and after 35 years as a financial analyst, I finally believed I had earned the right to breathe slowly again. Seattle was colder that year, not just the wind, but the world itself. Prices climbed faster than leaves could fall. Groceries doubled, gas rose, and the word inflation hummed through every evening news report like background static. Still, I was grateful. Grateful for my small blue house at the corner of Birch Street. Paid off, quiet, and smelling faintly of cedar and coffee grounds. It was old, but it was mine. Every Friday evening, my son Caleb and his wife Nora came for dinner. It started years ago. A family ritual I refused to let fade. I cooked his favourite meals, not because I had to, but because feeding him still made me feel like a mother. But lately, things had changed. They no longer called before showing up. They just arrived, walking in, opening the fridge, setting their bags on the counter. My home had slowly become a stop on their schedule. Nora often sighed about parking, or complained that my kitchen was too cosy. Caleb would laugh, pat her shoulder and say, "Mum's house has character. Don't you, Mum?" I would smile. Always smile. Because that's what mothers do. That Friday night began like every other. I made roast chicken and mashed potatoes, his favourite since he was 10. The smell of butter filled the house, wrapping everything in memory. But the air shifted during dinner. Caleb leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful, tone oddly calm. He said, "Mum, starting next month, I'll handle your pension deposits. I'll make sure your bills are paid on time. It'll just make things easier." Nora smiled too quickly. "It'll take stress off our shoulders," she said softly, as if the decision was already made. I blinked, unsure I'd heard correctly. I asked, "Why would that be necessary?" Caleb chuckled, that gentle, patronising laugh adult children learn without realising it. "Mum, you're too trusting. Scams are everywhere these days. It's just safer if I manage it." Safer. That word echoed in my head like a small closing door. I looked at him and saw a flash of the boy who once needed me to tie his shoes. And in the same second, saw the man who believed he had the right to tie my hands instead. I smiled, though my chest felt tight. "If it makes you feel better," I said softly, "we can talk about it later." He seemed satisfied. Nora began stacking plates, humming as if everything were perfectly normal. When they left, laughter followed them out the door. The house sank into silence again. Just the low hum of the refrigerator, filling the space they'd left behind. I sat at the table for a long time. The wood was still warm where Caleb's hands had been. For 35 years, I had worked overtime, balanced ledgers, skipped vacations, all to give him a life where he'd never have to struggle. Now, I wasn't sure if he saw that as love or leverage. The clock ticked, slow and steady, on the wall. His words replayed in my mind. It's safer if I manage it. He hadn't asked. He had declared. Something fragile inside me cracked. Quietly, without sound. February 2024. A grey morning. Seattle drizzle on the windows. I sat with my coffee, scrolling through my banking app when I saw it, a withdrawal of $1,400 from a branch across the city. I hadn't been anywhere near that area. My stomach dropped. I called the bank. The woman on the phone spoke politely, as if reading from a script. She said the transaction had been approved through a verified device, one linked to my account. She read the last 4 digits aloud. They were Caleb's phone number. The air in my kitchen turned heavy. I hung up, my hand cold against the receiver. I remembered lending him my card months ago. Just for gas, he'd said. He must have copied my information. I opened old statements and traced every line. Small withdrawals, random charges, furniture, electronics. Each one another piece of evidence. That night, I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I searched my name online and found something worse. A new credit account under my identity. Over $3,000 in debt. My name, my address, and his comfort. I whispered into the dark. I will not scream. I will not cry. Instead, I began printing everything. Every receipt. Every transaction. The printer hummed softly, calm and methodical.
Summer 2024.
Seattle's air was thick with warmth and noise. Caleb posted photos online. Iced coffee, gym selfies, captions about healing and boundaries. In his version of reality, I had become the problem. His friends commented things like, "Proud of you, man," and "Cutting out toxicity is strength." I stared at his smile glowing through the screen, each pixel rewriting me as the villain. I felt nothing, just clarity. That night, I sat under the yellow lamp and realized silence would no longer protect me. The next morning, I called a lawyer, Mr. Dalton. His office smelled of paper and old carpet cleaner. He listened without interrupting, took notes in neat, square handwriting. When I finished, he looked up and said, "Ms. Marlowe, that's financial fraud." The word hit like a sharp breath. Clean, precise, real. He gave me a list. Passwords to change, accounts to freeze, agencies to contact. I followed each step. Days blurred together with phone calls, forms, and long holds with polite customer service voices. Piece by piece, I rebuilt my identity. And with every call, my fear burned away, replaced by focus. By fall, I no longer waited for apologies. One evening, while watering my porch plants, my phone buzzed. A new post from Caleb. Protecting your peace sometimes means letting go of people who refuse to grow. A latte in his hand. The sunlight, perfect. Underneath, hashtags. Hashtag healing. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag self-care. People cheered him on. I set the phone down. My heart didn't race. It didn't break. It simply steadied. That night I wrote a letter. I detailed every date, every account, every stolen dollar, the truth, printed and signed. I sealed it in an envelope and handed it to my neighbour, Mrs. Harlan, the next morning. Hold on to this, I said. Just in case. Her brows furrowed, but she nodded. Back home, I sat by the window. The city shimmered faintly under distant rain. For the first time, I felt calm. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I had finally stopped protecting him. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. Winter 2024. The courthouse smelled faintly of coffee and wet paper. I sat quietly in the back as the judge read the ruling. Caleb Marlowe, guilty of financial fraud. Ordered to repay $18,000 and issue a public statement of admission. The words didn't sound like victory. They sounded like closure. Weeks later, I saw his post. Short, formal, regretful. He admitted what he had done. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't share it. I just let it exist. Silence, I realized, was my real triumph. Spring 2025. I sold my old house and bought a small white cottage by the coast in Newport. It wasn't fancy. Chipped paint, narrow porch, salt in the air. But it was mine. Entirely mine. Each morning I planted roses by the fence and joined an online gardening group for women my age. We talked about seedlings, weather, and second chances. For the first time in years, I caught myself smiling without reason. One afternoon, as the sea turned gold under the sunset, a new message appeared on my phone. It was from Caleb. I'm in therapy now, trying to change. I hope you're doing okay. I read it twice. No apology, no excuses, just a fragile attempt at peace. I set the phone aside. There were no tears, only understanding. Time would decide what words never could. That evening, I sat on my porch, listening to the slow rhythm of the waves. Peace, I realized, isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you rebuild, piece by piece, when you finally stop chasing what broke you. The tide kept moving, steady, certain. And for the first time in a long while, so did I.